Have you ever had that feeling, that sudden, like, lurch in your stomach?
Oh, yeah.
That moment of sheer dread when you look at the clock and just realize you are running so late for something important.
Definitely. Work meeting, doctor.
Exactly. A critical work meeting, maybe a doctor's appointment you waited ages for, or dinner with friends you haven't seen in forever. We've all been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Scrambling for the right words, trying to, figure out what to say that sounds believable, sincere.
Right, the perfect explanation.
Yeah. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into exactly that.
Yeah.
Lateness, but we're going way beyond just, the act of being late.
We're digging into the language people use, the actual words and phrases.
And even more surprising, maybe, how the whole idea of what on time even means can change so much depending on where you are in the world.
It really does.
Our source for this is great. It's excerpts from Navigating Lateness, Excuses and Explanations. And our mission really is to give you a more nuanced understanding of all this.
Yeah, how lateness is seen, how it's talked about.
Giving you insights that, frankly, go beyond just a simple sorry.
Definitely more useful in that.
So we'll unpack some common situations, find some really useful phrases you can actually use. And then this is where it gets really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
We'll explore how, say, a 10:00 a.m. meeting might start at 9:00 a.m. sharp, or 10.0 on the dot, or maybe even like 10.0s depending on the local culture.
Yeah, the global variations are fascinating.
Okay, so let's start with a scene. Something maybe familiar. Picture a busy office. It's 10.15 a.m.
Okay.
15 minutes past the start time for a big meeting. And the boss, pacing, looking at their watch, clearly getting frustrated.
You can feel the tension.
You can almost hear them thinking, look, if I say 10:00, not 10.01, and definitely not 10.2.
It's such a classic setup, isn't it? And our source actually gives us some perfect examples of the excuses people gave in that kind of situation.
Oh, okay, like what?
Well, there was Joe. He called, said he got tied up with a client, but he'd be there in a sec.
Okay, Taito, we'll come back to that.
Right. Then Jess shows up. She explained she was stuck in traffic. Apparently, there was a huge pileup on the highway.
The traffic excuse. Always a popular one.
Mm-hmm. And she had a detail. Traffic backed up for miles. Then Scott called too, said he was running late because his last meeting ran over.
So client, traffic, meeting running over, those sound kind of standard, maybe.
They do. But then there was the other person. The one who eventually, scrolls in and says something like, sorry, everyone, I know I'm late, but really it's not my fault. I was getting coffee at Starbucks, and the line was way, way too long. I waited like 20 minutes just for my coffee.
Ouch. Okay. That Starbucks one, it just lands differently, doesn't it? It kind of screams this meeting wasn't my top priority.
Exactly.
Does the source talk about why some excuses feel more acceptable than others? Is it just the reason or how you say it?
That's a great question. And yeah, the source suggests it's really both. Things like, unexpected client demands or big traffic accidents.
Things outside your control.
Precisely. They're seen as external, unavoidable. So they get a bit more sympathy, generally. But the coffee line, that feels like a choice.
A choice, yeah. You chose coffee over being on time.
Mm-hmm. It signals prioritizing personal convenience. And that's probably why it sounds, less like a good excuse. It's about how much the excuse shifts the blame away from you.
Okay, that makes sense. So whether your reason is like totally legit or maybe a bit iffy, the language you use is key.
Absolutely critical.
It's not just the dictionary definition, right? It's about sounding natural, making it sound credible. So what are some of those essential phrases our source points out? The ones we should maybe have ready.
Yeah, and what's interesting is how these phrases carry subtle meanings. Like you picked up on got tied up.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just mean busy. It suggests you were busy with something you couldn't easily get away from. Almost like you were literally, tied by a rope.
Okay, so it implies an obligation.
Exactly. An external, unavoidable one. So you might hear, sorry, I'm late, honey. I got tied up at the office. Or I was tied up on the phone all afternoon. You can even use it for traffic, like I got tied up in traffic, emphasizing you were held up unexpectedly.
Okay. And what about the traffic ones? Stuck in traffic.
Right, stuck in traffic. That phrase perfectly captures that feeling, doesn't it? Being completely unable to move because of all the cars stopped around you. You're literally in the jam.
Yeah, helpless.
And to make that excuse sound even stronger, people often add details, like Jess did with the pileup.
Right, the pileup.
A pileup means a big accident, multiple cars. It explains why the traffic is so bad. Or saying traffic was backed up for miles. That paints a picture of a really long, unavoidable delay. Adds credibility.
Got it. Details help sell it.
Oh.
What else? You mentioned Scott said he was running late.
Ah, yes, running late. That's super common. Sounds very natural. It's what you say when you realize you are going to be late and you're letting someone know, usually while you're on your way.
So it's kind of a heads up.
Exactly, a proactive heads up. Like, Jane is running late, she'll be here in 10 minutes. Or you might text, traffic is awful, I'm running late. You can even soften it, I'm running a bit late, so please start without me. Shows consideration.
That's a good one. And the last meeting, what was that phrase?
Ran over. That's specifically for things like meetings or appointments that just went longer than scheduled.
Okay, so it wasn't your fault necessarily.
Right. It implies an external factor. Maybe the other people in the meeting kept talking, or the doctor's appointment before yours took too long. So my meeting ran over by 15 minutes. I'm going to be a little late.
Makes sense. And wasn't there one more? In a sec? Joe said that.
Yes. In a sec. It's short for in a second, obviously. But it's used informally, often as an exaggeration, meaning very, very soon.
Like almost immediately.
Pretty much. It's different from saying in a minute. In a minute could mean, 3-5 minutes, maybe longer. In a sec suggests you're practically there, just moments away.
Okay, wow. Those are actually really useful distinctions. Knowing those specific phrases, the nuances, it really can make a difference in how clearly and maybe how sympathetically you explain yourself.
Definitely. It helps you sound more natural, more fluent when these things happen.
But okay, let's shift gears a bit, because beyond just the words we use, our source gets into something even deeper about punctuality, the whole cultural angle. It points out that ideas about time and ideas about being late are different in different countries.
Yes. This is where it gets so interesting, because it's not just random differences. It often ties back to how a culture views time itself. Is it linear, something to be managed, or is it more flexible?
Okay, explain that, like clock time versus event time. Is that the idea?
Sort of, yeah.
Well,
Our source gives examples. Think about North America, Canada, the U.S. For work, punctuality is usually key.
right. 9:00 a.m. means 9:00 a.m.
Exactly. You're expected to be at your desk, working at 9:00, not arriving at 9:00. That's more of a monochronic view. Time is like a line, a resource you manage carefully.
Okay. What about social stuff there?
Well, the source mentions Canada specifically. If dinner's at 6:00 p.m., showing up around 6:05 p.m. is often considered polite.
Oh, interesting. Not right on the dot.
Yeah, it gives the host maybe a few extra minutes to finish up without feeling rushed right at 6:00.
Yeah.
Still pretty punctual, though.
Okay, so that's one end of the spectrum, maybe. What's the contrast? Where does time feel looser?
Well, the source talks about Latin American countries. There's often this concept people call Latino time or Hispanic time.
I've heard that phrase. What does it mean in practice?
It means a 9:00 a.m. meeting might realistically start closer to 9:15, maybe 9:3. After people arrive, get coffee, chat a bit.
Okay, so more relaxed in a work context and socially.
Even more so. A 6:00 p.m. dinner invitation. Guests might start arriving at 6 or even 7:00 p.m.
Wow.
And the food itself might not even be served until 8:00 or 9:00 p.m. It's much more polychronic.
Polychronic,
Meaning time is more flexible, less rigid. Relationships, the flow of the event, social interaction, those often take priority over sticking to a strict schedule. The event starts when the important people are there, when things feel ready.
That's a huge difference. Are there places that are like the opposite of that? Super strict?
Oh, definitely. The source mentions German countries as a strong contrast.
How so?
If you're told to be there at 6:00 p.m., you're there at 6:00 p.m. Period. Not 6:01.
Seriously. No grace period.
Generally, no. Punctuality is highly valued. Same for work. If work starts at 9:00, you're working at 9:00. Being 10 or 15 minutes late is often just not acceptable in those contexts.
Wow. So these aren't just slight variations, they're like fundamentally different expectations.
Exactly. And they're deeply embedded in the local culture, like unwritten rules everyone understands.
That contrast is really striking, but I wonder, does the source talk about what happens when these different cultural clocks, clash? Like an American working in Latin America, or maybe someone from Germany working in the U.S.
It doesn't give specific clash anecdotes, but it heavily implies the solution is awareness.
Okay. Just knowing the difference exists.
Knowing and adapting. The source stresses that understanding these local traditions, these different ways of handling time, isn't just about being polite. It's about cultural intelligence.
Right. Avoiding misunderstandings.
Exactly. If you're coming from a very clock time culture into one where time is more fluid, You need to adjust your expectations. You can't get instantly frustrated if a meeting starts 20 minutes late.
And the other way around.
And conversely, if you're from a more flexible time culture moving into a very punctual one, like Germany or maybe parts of North America for business, you need to recognize how crucial strict punctuality is. It's about building trust, showing respect within that cultural framework.
So it's about understanding the unspoken social contract around time in that specific place.
Perfectly put. It's about adapting to that contract.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've gone through the practical side, the language, the phrases for explaining lateness.
The toolkit.
And we've journeyed into these really diverse cultural landscapes of punctuality. It's become pretty clear that on time isn't some universal constant on a clock.
Not at all. It's much more about shared expectations, cultural values, the context you're in.
And understanding all these nuances, it's not just about, making a better apology or avoiding trouble with the boss.
No, it's bigger than that.
It feels like it's about communicating more clearly, building better relationships, whether at work or socially, and just generally navigating our very interconnected world with a bit more awareness, cultural intelligence.
Absolutely. That's the real value, I think.
So wrapping this up, thinking about everything we've explored, the excuses, the language, these vastly different cultural takes on time. What stands out most to you listening right now? How does this resonate with your own experiences of punctuality, maybe in your own life or places you visited, or even just things you've heard about? And maybe the bigger question is, how might knowing about these differences actually influence how you approach scheduling things or social plans in the future?
It definitely gives you something to think about next time you're setting up a meeting or waiting for a friend.